Hey guys, so this is Maidan Square. This square has a lot of history going all the way back to the 10th century. It wasn't really starting to be built up until after the 1830s. Before then it was just kind of a swampy area. In fact, it was actually known as Goat Swamp. And after that, by about 1871, during the Russian Industrial Revolution, this area, Kyiv, became the third largest city in the Russian Empire. And it's kind of just taken off from there. So all these buildings you see around me have been torn down and rebuilt and torn down and rebuilt a bunch of different times. The most recent that the square, Maidan Square, made it into the news was in the end of 2013, going into 14, when they had the revolution. And protesters gathered here in opposition to the president, Viktor Yanukovych, at the time, who they thought was trying to lead them more towards Russia, and the people wanted to go more towards a European government. And so they had a huge protest here. There was lots of fighting, people were killed, mass protests. This monument that I'm standing next to became a central part of that revolution, and videos and pictures from the time you can see it was just decimated. There was fires, there were gunshots all over it, and this area was really the focal point of that revolution that's still ongoing in the eastern part of Ukraine right now. So over the last couple of years, I've covered a lot of the stories that have happened right here. And so this area kind of has a special significance for me. And it's really cool to actually be here in person now and see it for myself. So I'm really glad that I got to be here, and there's a ton more that we're gonna go see, but I had to go here first and check it out. So let's go see what else we can find. So one of the biggest points of contention in the Ukrainian conflict, the ongoing civil war, is the division between parts that were considered to be Russian and parts that were considered to be Ukrainian. And Crimea was a large part of that. And if you look at the square behind me now, down there on the ground, you can sort of see the shape of Ukraine painted on the ground. And the concept of unity and what's Ukrainian and what's Russian, and trying to split that line that's been blurred for centuries now, is a huge part of the problem that Ukrainians are having in unifying their country. So it's really interesting to see little signs of that all over the place. Alright, so behind me we've got Mykhailivsky Cathedral, or St. Michael's Monastery, St. Michael's Golden Domed Monastery. As you can see, it's absolutely beautiful. It's got a lot of history, of course, you know, most things here do. I could probably stop saying that. This is kind of sad, and I'll tell you why in a second. The cathedral was originally built in the Middle Ages, and it was updated and changed and stuff throughout the centuries. It was built in the Byzantine style with those golden domes, but then in the 18th century it was updated, the exterior was updated to the Ukrainian Baroque style, while the interior kind of kept the original Byzantine style. The bell tower, which I'll show you on the other side in a second, was added in 1719, and that was pretty much it for the next couple of centuries until the 1930s. And anyone familiar with history will probably know where this is going. In the 1930s, the Soviets took over and they tore the whole thing down. Just like they did in China. That's what they do. No reminders of the past. Everything is the future. We move boldly forward and wipe out all of our history. So it was completely destroyed. At the end of the 90s, the 1990s, Ukraine had an independence celebration, and they started construction on a new monastery, and they finished it. And so this one's only about 15, 16 years old now. But it still looks great, and it's very similar to what was originally here. It's just, it's not the original. So sad, but still, it's great that they managed to rebuild it. So we're coming to the bell tower that I was telling you about. You know, a lot of history happened here. There was a lot of unfortunate steps taken by the Soviet Union when they went to destroy all of this. They wanted to build a Soviet administration center here for Ukraine. And so they got a bunch of archaeologists at the time to come through and say, well, this is all Ukrainian Baroque style, it doesn't have any historical value. There was one archaeologist who refused to sign off on the papers. He later died in a Soviet prison. So they went through and they took apart all of the mosaics, they took them all out, and they moved them around to St. Sophia's Cathedral, which we're going to see in a minute. And then they took dynamite and blew the whole thing up. So that's what happens when you let communists take over, I guess. So the mosaics were taken out and they were sent to Moscow. Then what was left here was captured by the Nazis and taken to museums. After the war, the Americans came through and we got a lot of the mosaics, and then after that we sent them back to Moscow. So these things have been all over the place, really. And that is Mykolaievsky's Cathedral. Let's go check out St. Sophia's. So I got strong-armed by these two Ukrainians walking around with some pigeons into getting my picture taken with the pigeons. I was like, no, I don't want it. I know where this is going. I don't want it. And they're like, no. They just started putting them on me. And they took like a million pictures. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I was like, fine, whatever. And afterwards, they were like, okay, now you pay. I was like, fuck, all right, I knew this was coming. So I was like, I told you guys I didn't want this to begin with, so how much do you want? And they're like, 800, which is like, what is that, like 30, 40 bucks, I think. Anyway, and I was like, yeah, no. It's like, I'll give you 100. Like, oh no, not 100. No, we did so much. I was like, no, we're done. And then I saw them kind of smiling, and I was like, okay, whatever. Take your damn birds, go. Walking away, I looked down at my shoulder, and one of the birds took a big shit right on my shoulder. So yeah, that was their parting gift. Anyways, I don't know what the moral of that story is, but I'm sure there's one somewhere in it. Alright, so now we're out in front of St. Sophia's Cathedral, and it was actually named after the 6th century Hagia Sophia. The cathedral was built in either 1037 or 1011, we're not exactly sure. So it dates back about 1,000 years. This current iteration, it was renovated in the 17th century by an Italian architect to better reflect the Ukrainian Baroque style. But like the Mykolaievsky Cathedral, it maintained the Byzantine interior. This cathedral is considered one of the 7 wonders of Ukraine, and just like the Mykolaievsky, it was nearly destroyed in 1934 by the Soviets. But with an outpouring of protest from Ukrainian historians and scientists, they managed to save it. However, the Soviets did have a final say in that they took it away from the church and made it into a museum. So now it is still used occasionally by various churches, the Greek Orthodox and the Catholics. They're fighting over it. Neither one has gotten full custody of it, but it's a pretty amazing building, and we're gonna go take a look inside, and hopefully I can film in there. We'll see. Okay, so we weren't allowed to actually do any filming in there. I did manage to sneak a couple of pictures, which I'll put up right now. You do not capture the incredible power of being inside that place. Some of those paintings on the walls back there, they're very faded and they're kind of hard to make out. But I asked one of the curators inside how old they were. They're 1,000 years old. The paintings on the walls. It's one thing when the building itself you're seeing is 1,000 years old. I mean, we're kind of used to seeing castles and things like that. But actual paintings, the tiny brushwork, the colors, it's more alive than a building is. And the paintings in there are 1,000 years old. I can't fathom that. That's 4 times older than my country. Over that. It's incredible. Anyway, we're going to walk around, maybe go see the bell tower and see what else we can find around here. There's so much to see. I may have to prolong my visit to Kyiv. The city is huge, and I feel like I've just barely gotten a taste of it.